Welcome and good morning. I am Annette Lovell and I will be your worship associate today. Today is our 9th online service and Reverend Jackie, Drew White, Daniel Schwinn, and myself are pleased to bring you our service today from our church's sanctuary. Okay. So welcome. Welcome to this morning, this day, and this opportunity to be together in community, even if it's online. For our announcements today, we have quite a few. First of all, we just want to encourage everyone to check in the chat box and just say a quick good morning so we know who is joining us. And later in the service, we're going to have our offertory. There are several ways to give. On the screen, there is a photo of our website showing where you can make your offering. You can go to our church's website and click on the Give button. It is located in the upper right-hand corner between Search and Contact. When you click on this button, you can pay via PayPal, and of course, you can always send your checks in the mail to the church. We all need to be a part of keeping this church afloat, even if we're not meeting in person. We also have an announcement from Reverend Ziegler. She will be sending out a very, very important email tonight. Please look for it in your inbox. It's very important that you look at this and you read it. It is from the UUA concerning online services, and there will be further discussion later on. Also, as many are aware, Sue Wild is moving to Boise, and we want to send her off with love and gratitude and joy. So on May 22nd, which is this Friday, here at the church between 4 and 5:30, we invite everyone to come and wish her well. If the weather is good, she will be sitting in the Peace Garden outside. If the weather is not so good, we will move it inside. At all times, social distancing will be maintained. Inside, we will be wearing masks, so please bring a mask. Even outside, masks will be recommended, but please stop by. If you have any questions, Molly Brinkerhoff is the one to contact, and she can give you some more details. And lastly, Reverend Kevin Carson and his wife are making a journey to Idaho Falls on June 16th through the 22nd to look for housing and to see the area. We will be trying to put some small groups together during this time to meet with him. We'll have to see how things look again as time moves on, but put it on your calendar. We're going to try to do the best we can. We will now move into our sacred time of worship by ringing the peace bowl. As I ring the peace bowl 3 times, take deep breaths in and relax into your exhale. For this moment in time, let go of your anxieties, fears, and worries, and be in this moment. We will begin with our prelude. Since we are not together in a shared space, I will read our church covenant for all of us. It is printed in your order of service that was emailed earlier, and feel free to say it along with me in your own homes. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We will now light our chalice. If you have a candle or a chalice available, please light yours along with me. Our chalice this morning comes from Catherine Callahan. As the chalice is lit, let us come together into the sacred space we have created. Let the cares of the day fall away, and know that here is a place for quiet reflection, for a pause in our lives, for breathing into our true selves. Let what is said and felt here add richness to the dimensions of our lives and spiritual practices. We are strong together in community. We share the experiences of being human. Let the warmth of the chalice lit during our time together connect us and carry us into the world.
Good people, let this time together be a sacred time, for it is the Sabbath. As it is the Sabbath, I invite you to leave aside for this time the thoughts and concerns that distract you from exploring the depths of your soul, that stop you from taking time to reflect on that which you cannot or do not do during the headlong tumble of the moments during the weekdays. Join with others in this virtual community of seekers, so alone and yet together, we can find this Sabbath as a day for deep reflection that will nourish us the days ahead. And now I invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, Come O Sabbath, hymn number 204, and it was sent to you earlier. Please note, though, that in the third stanza you have a choice to say, instead of the setting sun, the rising sun. Let us begin.
Okay, hymn 204, Come O Sabbath Day. I'll play it all the way through, and then we'll begin singing.
Work and sorrow cast away.
top of my reflection came to me in a whisper as I sat reading short essays in the Christian theology Howard Thurman's book, Meditations of the Heart, and the Buddhist Pema Chodron's book, Comfortable with Uncertainty. The whisper said, during normal times, prayer and meditation often was limited and hedged in by a multiplicity of details and distractions to which we often felt we needed to pay attention to. Now, during this COVID-19 pandemic, I suspect people don't even want to try to pray or meditate because they're experiencing so much discomfort around the high level of uncertainty that the pandemic has brought into their lives. Yet, I suggest it is through the quiet stillness of prayer and meditation that an antidote to that discomfort can be found. Let me see if I can make this so for you. I want to say, though, that my reflection reflects their essays, as well as writings from many others, such as Reverend Jack Mendelson, Reverend Dr. Harry Meserve, and Thich Nhat Hanh, etc. I'll start with a brief overview of prayer and meditation. Prayer and meditation are spiritual practices that are well suited to help us listen to our life. Both slow us down, help us center, and push the ego to the side so it does not dominate our contemplation. Done well, both practices take us deeper into our own life. Distractions disappear, assumptions are uncovered, and fear is diminished as we move from willingfulness to willingness. Of course, both practices involve sacrifice, of which time is the most obvious. But any sacrifice is more than compensated with an increase in our well-being. This is to say that both prayer and meditation are profound forms of self-care. They shift the equation from human doing to human being. The fruits of both are subtle, sweet, and luminous. Let me briefly consider prayer now. Regarding prayer, for many Unitarian Universalists, but not all, as children, many of us learned that prayer was petition, or asking God for something for ourselves. God becomes the old man in the sky with a long white beard, a cosmic Santa Claus, who can, on a whim, grant or deny our petition. For those who are atheists or agnostics, the idea of prayer may have little value. For others, this narrow idea of prayer as petition seems less than satisfying. However, prayer, at its core, is not petitionary. It is relational. Prayer involves cultivating a connection with our deepest selves, with those around us, and with that which transcends us and commands our awareness, whether that is humanity, God, nature, life, or whatever else is holy or sacred or important to us. Often when someone is ill, they'll say, I will hold you in my thoughts and my prayers. To call someone to mind and hold them in our thoughts is, I think, rather special. Perhaps that is enough. And yet, to hold that same person in prayer takes that relationship to a deeper level. We then are expressing the deepest yearnings of our heart in regard to that person. So what can prayer be also? One way of describing different prayers is simply, give me, oops, ouch, wow, and thanks. Or prayers of petition, confession, intercession, praise, and gratitude. The Unitarian Universalist minister Jack Mendelson writes, "Suppose we think of prayer not as a means of commandeering God's attention for our personal wants, but as an approach to the deepest truths about ourselves. Suppose we think of it as a way of shedding new light on our relationships with others or with God. Suppose we think of it as essential religious striving to touch truth and tap resources within and beyond ourselves." Mendelson continues, "Prayer is an effort to reach deep and to reach out and to become what we would like to be and need to be and ought to be." Proper prayer is not a petition to escape realities. It is an effort to face up to realities, to understand them, to deal with them. It is an expression of the desire to grow in spiritual stature, in courage, in strength, and in faith. The smiling prophet James Luther Adams, a Unitarian Universalist, wrote, "To be genuine, prayer must lead to a sense of the ultimate, and yet also to a sense of the intimate." In the end, he says, "Intimacy and ultimacy are the yin and the yang of religious life." We can experience them, he says, these in many different dimensions of prayers. Now, for some, prayer is a conversation with God, good people. But don't make the mistake of thinking that you know what they mean by the word God. You can only know by asking. And I would venture to say that if the person has any spiritual depth at all, their notion of God might just well surprise you. Consider these words by the Episcopal Bishop Shelby Spong. He said, "I do not believe that there is a being, a supernatural deity, standing over against the world who seeks through some invasive process to imprint the divine will on the life of my world." He says, "The deity I worship is rather part of who I am individually and corporately. God is the presence in whom I have my being." Now, for some, prayer is a conversation with themselves. As Gerald May said, prayer is all about the deepest longings of our being. Giving voice to those longings in quiet solitude can be both affirming and liberating. As the UU minister Ken Collier writes, prayer is anything that reveals to you the holiness, the beauty, the healing, the uniqueness, and the wholeness of your life. For some, prayer is service done on behalf of others. As the African American sociologist W.E.B. Du Bois once wrote, "The prayer of our souls is a petition for persistence, not for the one good deed or single thought, but deed on deed and thought on thought, until day calling on today shall make a life worth living." Universalist minister Lon Ray Call explained, "Prayer doesn't change things. Prayer changes people, and people change things." Or as Dorothy Day explained, "I believe some people's lots of people praying, through the witness of their lives, through the work they do, the friendship they have, the love they offer people and receive from people, is also prayer. For some, prayer is praise, the response to the experience of astonishment, wonder, or awe. As the poet Mary Oliver writes in her poem, the famous poem, The Summer Day, she says, I don't know exactly what prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? She then writes, doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild, precious life? For some, prayer is an expression of gratitude. Arlise Unger writes, each morning as I step outside to get the newspaper, I stop to notice something for which I am grateful. I give thanks for the feel of the cool wind on my face, or the beauty of the clouds in the morning sky, or for the call of the quail upon the hill. It's my way to start the day with a prayer. The medieval mystic Meister Eckhart said, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that will be enough. Finally, some say prayer is seeking forgiveness, perhaps undeserved, but as necessary as the air we breathe. So, good people, I ask, what could prayer mean for you? Could any of those expressions work for you? Let me share what Howard Thurman says. He says, the place of prayer and meditation in the life of the modern person is limited in by the multiplicity of details, which they feel they must give attention to. Continues on, he says, it is true that in some sense a person's whole life may be regarded as their prayer. Ordinarily, what a person does is an expression of their intent, and their intent is the focusing of their desire, and their desire are the prayers of their heart. But such explanations, he says, are far from satisfactory. There is no argument needed for the necessity of taking time out for being alone, for withdrawal, for being quiet without and still within. The sheer physical necessity is urgent because the body and the entire nervous system cry out for the healing waters of silence. One could not begin the cultivation of the prayer life at a more practical point than deliberately to seek each day and several times a day a lull in the rhythm of daily doing, a point when nothing happening that demands active participation. It is a wonderful way with which to begin the day and to bring one's day to an end. At first, he says, the quiet times may be quite barren or merely a retreat from exhaustion. One has to get used to stillness even after it has been achieved. The time, he says, may be used for taking stock, for examining one's life directions, one's plans, one's relationships, and the like. This in itself is most profitable. It is like cleaning out the closets or the desk drawers and getting things in order. The time may be used for focusing and refocusing one's purposes in the light of what at first may be only one's idea of the best and the highest. Then quiet changes begin to take place. Somewhere along the line, along the way, one's ideas of the best and the highest takes on transcendent character, and one begins to communicate with one's ideas of the best and the highest. When the awareness of God comes in, how he entered, one does not know. One is certain that he has been there all the time. This assurance is categorical. It becomes the very core of one's faith. Indeed, it becomes more and more one's faith. I hope you were able to translate his thoughts of God to what matters for you or how you define it. Now let me say a little bit about Unitarian Universalists and meditation. You know, many Unitarian Universalists are more comfortable with meditation than prayer. Meditation is a spiritual practice. Karen Morgan writes, meditation is a technique that creates a stillness which brings us into the present moment so that we can find and face ourselves. It's a way to unlock your full potential in all areas of your life. There are different ways to meditate. However, the common thread among all the methods is concentration. Each method involves a way to focus your concentration so that you become present to your deeper self. Getting connected with your deeper self will allow you to find answers to the questions you face in life. We have all had instances in our lives of this type of connection and stillness. Think of a time when you looked into a newborn baby's eyes, or looked at the night sky and felt the wonder of the vastness, or sat by a river and allowed the sound of the flow move you into a state of stillness. These were spontaneous experiences, Karen says. Meditation, she says, is about having these experiences purposely. The Buddhist teacher, though, Thich Nhat Hanh, says, meditation is not escape. It is the courage to look at reality with mindfulness and concentration. Meditation, he says, is essential for our survival. Rather than focusing meditation on content, meditation often focuses on breathing to help clear our mind. There is an old dictum that counsels, if you try too hard to meditate, you can't. The resolution of this quandary in Zen Buddhism is captured in this way. Quit trying. Quit trying not to try. Quit quitting. It should be clear that meditation requires commitment to cultivate skill over time. And I want to end with a short essay called Why Meditate by the Buddhist Penma Chodron that I've slightly edited. She writes, as a species, we should never underestimate our low tolerance for discomfort. To be encouraged to stay with our vulnerability is news that we can use. Sitting meditation is our support for learning how to do this. Sitting meditation is also known as mindfulness awareness practice. It gives us a way to move closer to our thoughts and emotions and to get in touch with our bodies. It is a method of cultivating unconditional friendliness towards ourselves and parting the curtain of indifference that distances us from the suffering of others. It is our vehicle for learning to be a truly loving person. Gradually, she says, through meditation, we begin to notice that there are gaps in our internal dialogue. In the midst of continually talking to ourselves, we experience a pause, as if awakening from a dream. We recognize our capacity to relax with the clarity, the space, the open-ended awareness that already exists in our minds. We experience moments of being right here that feel simple, direct, and uncluttered. By simply staying here in meditation, we relax more and more into the open dimension of our full being. It feels, she says, like stepping out of a fantasy and discovering the simple truth. So, good people, I hope this reflection on prayer and meditation will help you with today's discomforts brought on by the uncertainties of this pandemic. May it be so for you. I hope it will be. So ends my reflection.
It is time for our morning offering. Even though we are not together in person every Sunday, the church still has expenses and obligations, and we need every one of us to still be part of the process. As I said earlier, you can go to our website and use the Give button, or mail the check to our P.O. box. The address and instructions can be found in the order of service emailed to you. You can also use this time to reflect on the words and the ideas shared by Reverend Jackie earlier in her reflection.
1.
We gratefully receive any offering that was given or will be given over the next week. This is a very special time in our congregation where each of us has an opportunity to share major events in our lives, a time to share our joys, our concerns, and our sorrows so we can be uplifted by our UU community. Reverend Jackie will read the joys, concerns, and sorrows that were emailed earlier to us, and I will light a candle. While they are being read, if you have a joy or a concern that you did not email, you can post it now in the chat box. Please designate first if it is a joy or a concern, and after we read the emailed items, we will read those in the chat box and we will light a candle for you.
First, I ask Annette to light a red candle of concern and sorrow for all the people in the United States who are suffering from COVID-19 or those who have passed away. Thank you, Annette. A concern and a joy at the same time. Our beloved friend Judy Stanley had a stroke early this week. She had brain surgery, and for a while they didn't know if she was going to make it. The next day after the surgery, they did another CAT scan on her brain and found that the bleeding had stopped, and that was very good news. Her husband Chuck was able to spend some time with the doctor and the nurses in a team consultation, and they decided they would do therapy with her, physical therapy. So on Saturday, they got her up with the help of the nurses and walked her around. Her eyes were closed, but she was able to walk a little bit. That was good news. The next good news, because they didn't know how conscious she really was that her husband said, "Judy, I love you." And she squeezed his hand, a sure sign that she's conscious and is understanding. So I invite you to hold Judy in your prayers, in your thoughts, in your meditation. We're really happy for her, though she will have probably a long haul. Now, I'm the only person that's going to be communicating with Chuck because it can be overwhelming for him, he said, to have so many people call. Please know that I will keep in touch with you. She is at Ermac, and nobody can see her other than Chuck, not even her children, because of COVID-19. Now, a wonderful joy, a joy from David Boget. She writes, "I was able to see my mom on Monday and give her a letter of random life memories and a card for Mother's Day and a small picture I painted of butterflies, a symbol around the world of endurance, change, hope, and life. So many beautiful memories flutter through me, as beautiful and enduring as my mother. I am very lucky. I still am. Your candle will always be with me, Mom." Do we have more joys or concerns or sorrows? Okay, Annette. Mine's underneath there.
And as is our tradition, we light one more candle for those joys, concerns, and sorrows we hold in our hearts and are not ready to share at this time. Know that we lift up our love to you, even if we are not together at this time.
Let us now go into a time of shared yet distance, stillness and silence. And in that silence, I invite you to open your hearts to hear this meditational prayer. My prayer comes from George Kimbridge Beach. Some days dark tremors sweep across our lives. Troubling events accost us. We have grown accustomed to such things, and often we have fenced off our natural sympathies with the thought, this belongs to someone else. But now, a crisis of life brushes close to us, touches us, befalls us, and thus we loss and love. We want now to know how and what and why. We want an explanation, though we know that all our explanations put together do not finally explain. They but fence off worry, anger, and grief. The mysteries of evil and innocence remain. The darkness of being at a loss remains. And in this abyss of the heart, we can but pray and meditate for light. Thus my prayer, my meditation is, Spirit of light, let us be patient with all these feelings that drive us hither and yon. May we be at peace, more patient with ourselves. Let us live within the questions that promise no answers, but only signal the mystery that gave them birth. Let us turn from every pettiness of the heart, willing to see and accept that the world does not revolve around us. Let the grief, the pain, and the nameless trouble that overcomes us also open us to feel what others have felt. Giver of being and freedom, unbind our compassion for all those about us. May it be so. And now please join in singing hymn 391, Voice Still and Small. Jessica will offer you some instructions about singing it, and it was sent out to you earlier.
Hymn 391, Voice Still and Small. I will play it all the way through, and then we are going to sing it 3 times. all through the years, singing, voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing, in dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing, calling my fears, quenching my tears, all through the years, singing.
Good people, let us leave our virtual time of worship, knowing that it is together that we may face best the challenges that we have, that life presents to us. Together, apart, virtually, but still together. Oh, yeah. And now let's join in singing together another song, and that is number 83, which was sent out to you earlier, Winds Be Still.
Hymn 83, Winds Be Still. I'll play it all the way through and then we will sing.
We will now extinguish our chalice. If you wish, please join with me in the recitation. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And before we conclude our service, I invite you to participate in our virtual coffee hour, which begins after the prelude. The link was sent to you in that same email for today's service. Until next Sunday, stay safe and be well.